Hey everyone, welcome back to Fade to Fact. Today, we're stepping into a world of fireballs, flying kicks, and the most dramatic techno beat of the 90s. That's right, we're diving into Mortal Kombat, 1995, the movie that tried to do what no video game adaptation had done before, be both awesome and successful. And somehow, it actually pulled it off. Before 1995, video game movies were the cinematic equivalent of finish him to a studio's reputation. But Mortal Kombat brought together a surprisingly decent cast, some impressive fight choreography, and a soundtrack that made you want to uppercut someone through the ceiling. In a good way, of course. Directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, yes, the same guy who later brought us the Resident Evil films, Mortal Kombat had no right to be this fun. On paper, it was a cheesy martial arts flick based on an ultra-violent arcade game. But somehow it became a cult classic, grossing over $120 million worldwide and giving 90s kids one of the most quoted catchphrases in pop culture history. Mortal Kombat! And let's not forget that theme song. If you were alive in 1995, you heard it at least 500 times, in clubs, on the radio, or blasting from your cousin's boombox during sleepovers. So grab your soul before Shang Tsung does, because we're about to uncover 20 weird facts you didn't know about Mortal Kombat, 1995. 1. The movie that shouldn't have worked, but did. When New Line Cinema announced a Mortal Kombat movie, most critics rolled their eyes. A film based on a video game known for spine-ripping fatalities sounded like a guaranteed disaster. But thanks to tight direction, stylish visuals, and surprisingly strong performances, it worked. And then some. The movie became a global hit, earning over $120 million on just an $18 million budget, and proving that video game films didn't have to be trash. It became one of the few game adaptations that didn't embarrass fans, and instead made them cheer. Against all odds, Mortal Kombat not only survived the video game curse, it flawlessly defeated it. 2. Cameron Diaz was almost in the tournament. Here's a fun piece of alternate universe trivia. Cameron Diaz was originally cast as Sonya Blade. Yes, that Cameron Diaz, the one who had just blown up after The Mask. The studio wanted a rising star with charisma and athletic appeal, and she fit the bill perfectly. Unfortunately, during training, Diaz broke her wrist and had to leave the project right before filming. Bridget Wilson, fresh off Billy Madison, was cast as her replacement and flew straight to Thailand to start shooting. No rehearsal, no prep time, just pure chaos. Despite the whirlwind, she nailed the role and brought a fierce, grounded presence that became one of the film's strengths. 3. Liu Kang nearly got knocked out for real. Robin Shou, who played Liu Kang, did nearly all his own stunts, and he paid the price for it. During one take, a mistimed kick landed squarely on his face, knocking him flat and forcing production to pause. But instead of resting, Shou iced his jaw for 10 minutes and insisted on finishing the scene. His background in Hong Kong cinema made him used to real hits, and he joked later that pain was just part of the job. That commitment gave Liu Kang's fights a raw, authentic energy. Every punch, kick, and spin, you see? That's Shou putting his body on the line for Mortal Kombat glory. 4. Johnny Cage was based on a real action star. Johnny Cage's Hollywood ego and flashy martial arts aren't random. They're inspired by Jean-Claude Van Damme himself. The game's original creators based Cage's look, moves, and personality on the muscles from Brussels, down to the signature splits and sunglasses. In fact, Van Damme was supposed to star in the Mortal Kombat movie, but he turned it down to make Street Fighter instead. The irony? Mortal Kombat became a hit, while Street Fighter became a punchline. So even though Johnny Cage is technically a parody, he ended up outshining the real deal in the long run. 5. The filming locations were brutal. The film's exotic visuals came at a painful price. Shooting in Thailand was breathtaking on camera, but punishing in real life. The heat was unbearable, humidity ruined costumes, and insects seemed to attack everyone constantly. Crew members fainted, actors got dehydrated, and equipment broke down faster than you could shout, "Fatality!" Robin Shu recalled losing nearly 10 pounds during the Thailand shoot due to the extreme conditions. Director Paul W. S. Anderson later joked that finishing the movie felt like winning the tournament itself. If you ever wondered why everyone looked sweaty and exhausted in those jungle scenes, it wasn't acting. 6. The studio didn't want the famous theme song. Believe it or not, the legendary Techno Syndrome track, the Mortal Kombat scream, almost didn't make it into the movie. The studio originally thought the high-energy techno sound was too weird for mainstream audiences. But when test screenings played the track, fans went absolutely wild. The producers quickly realized it was gold and made it the movie's main theme. It became one of the most iconic soundtrack pieces of the 1990s, showing up in clubs, sports arenas, and even commercials for years afterward. 7. Goro was a mechanical nightmare. Goro, the four-armed Shokan warrior, wasn't CGI. He was an 8-foot-tall animatronic puppet operated by a team of puppeteers. The thing weighed over 100 pounds and cost over $1 million to build. But it constantly malfunctioned under the heat and humidity of Thailand. At one point, Goro's mechanical arms jammed mid-scene, forcing the crew to improvise camera angles to hide it. Despite the headaches, the puppet looked so real on film that many fans still believe it was partly CGI. Nope, just pure 90s movie magic. 8. The fights were rewritten mid-production. Halfway through filming, the studio realized that early fight scenes didn't look dynamic enough. So they called in additional choreographers and reshot several sequences, including Liu Kang versus Reptile and Johnny Cage versus Scorpion. The new fights incorporated Hong Kong-style martial arts, wire work, and faster editing. These last-minute fixes transformed the film's energy completely, giving it that explosive pace audiences loved. Ironically, those reshoots are now considered the movie's best sequences. 9. Christopher Lambert paid for extra scenes himself. Christopher Lambert, who played the thunder god Raiden, wasn't just the movie's biggest star. He was also one of its biggest supporters. When production ran out of budget for reshoots, Lambert volunteered to pay for additional scenes out of his own pocket. He believed the film needed more visual flair to stand out and even stayed on set to record ADR lines that weren't in his contract. His chill, deadpan take on Raiden became a fan favorite, proving that a little divine intervention can go a long way. 10. The PG-13 rating saved the movie. Fans expected buckets of blood, but the movie ended up being rated PG-13, and that decision probably saved it. New Line wanted a wider audience, especially teenagers who were obsessed with the games but couldn't see R-rated films. Instead of gory fatalities, the filmmakers leaned on flashy moves, creative camera cuts, and that over-the-top sound design. The result was intense but not too graphic, making it a box office hit rather than a niche cult film. Even so, the movie kept just enough edge to satisfy hardcore fans, a balancing act few game adaptations have ever pulled off since. 11. Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa improvised his most famous line. Shang Tsung's chilling delivery of "Your soul is mine" wasn't in the script the way we know it. Actor Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa added his own flavor, turning what was meant to be a generic villain line into an unforgettable catchphrase. His theatrical intensity and deep voice made the line iconic overnight. The crew reportedly cheered after his first take, realizing they'd just captured movie magic. Tagawa later said he wanted Shang Tsung to feel royal, elegant, and terrifying, and that one improvised line summed it up perfectly. 12. Bridget Wilson did her own stunts. Barely. Bridget Wilson may have joined late, but she refused to use a stunt double for most of her action scenes. Having no formal martial arts training, she learned on the fly, often just minutes before shooting. During the fight with Kano, she actually landed a few hits for real, shocking everyone on set. She admitted later that the physical toll was brutal, but she wanted Sonya to feel authentic. Considering how confident and tough she looked on screen, it's safe to say she succeeded. 13. Robin Shou and Lyndon Ashby trained themselves. Unlike big-budget productions that have months of prep time, Mortal Kombat's cast had barely a few weeks to train. Robin Shou, Liu Kang, and Lyndon Ashby, Johnny Cage, took it upon themselves to extend their workouts after hours. They even sparred together off-camera to build chemistry and timing. Their hard work paid off. Their fights were among the most fluid and energetic in the film. Ashby later said he learned more about martial arts on that set than in any gym. "We were bruised, sore, and exhausted," he said, "but it looked damn cool." 14. The Scorpion fight was a late addition. Believe it or not, one of the movie's coolest fights, Johnny Cage vs. Scorpion, was shot after filming had officially wrapped. The studio wanted more action, so they brought the team back months later to create an entirely new sequence. The hellish environment, flaming skull finish, and ninja choreography were all brand new. That fight became one of the highlights of the film and made Scorpion a breakout fan favorite. Sometimes, last-minute ideas end up stealing the whole show. 15. The reptile fight was almost cut entirely. Early drafts of the script barely featured Reptile at all. He was meant to be a quick cameo, mostly hidden by invisibility. But test audiences loved the character's mysterious vibe, so the filmmakers added a full fight scene between him and Liu Kang during post-production. It required new choreography, effects, and a completely different tone. The result was one of the most intense, memorable sequences in the movie. In other words, Reptile went from side note to showstopper. 16. They hid the game's violence with clever tricks. Fans noticed that unlike the game, the movie didn't show much blood. But the filmmakers used clever camera moves and sound effects to imply brutality without showing it. The heavy thuds, slow-motion hits, and echoing screams did most of the work. By letting the audience's imagination fill in the blanks, the fights still felt powerful and brutal. It was a subtle trick, and it kept the movie from crossing the line while preserving that Mortal Kombat punch. 17. The cast got along, except when they didn't. For the most part, the cast bonded well, sharing laughs during downtime and surviving Thailand's wild conditions together. But the stress occasionally boiled over. A few arguments broke out during stunt rehearsals when exhaustion and heat took their toll. Robin Shou later admitted everyone was fried by week 6. Still, their camaraderie came through on screen. The tension only made their fights look more real, because sometimes it kind of was. 18. The CGI was cutting edge for its time. While it looks dated now, Mortal Kombat's CGI effects were groundbreaking in 1995. The reptile creature, energy blasts, and portals were all state-of-the-art for mid-90s technology. The visual effects team had to invent new techniques to blend live action with digital animation. It was expensive and time-consuming, but it gave the movie a slick, otherworldly look that set it apart from cheap game adaptations. Back then, fans were genuinely wowed by it, and honestly, for its time, it was impressive. 19. It was almost rated R for one scene. The film barely avoided an R rating thanks to one moment, Scorpion's fiery skull fatality. The MPAA argued it was too graphic for a PG-13 audience. The filmmakers trimmed just a few frames of the burning skeleton to get approval. Ironically, that single edit may have saved millions at the box office. It kept younger audiences flooding in, and no one ever missed those 2 seconds anyway. Sometimes censorship really does pay off. 20. The success changed Hollywood forever. Mortal Kombat's triumph didn't just spawn sequels, it changed how studios viewed video game movies. It proved the formula could work. Respect the source, hire capable fighters, and don't take it too seriously. Suddenly, game adaptations were no longer a joke. The film's blend of camp and cool inspired everything from Resident Evil to Tomb Raider. Even decades later, when the 2021 reboot arrived, it was standing in the shadow of the original, a goofy, glorious, mid-95 miracle that shouted its way into pop culture history. And there you have it. 20 weird, wild, and wonderful facts about Mortal Kombat 1995 that you probably didn't know. From Cameron Diaz almost joining the tournament to the mechanical nightmare that was Goro, this movie was full of surprises behind the scenes as much as it was on screen. Whether it was last-minute fight rewrites, improvised lines, or actors risking life and limb for those epic stunts, Mortal Kombat proved that a video game adaptation could actually work, and even become a cult classic in the process. It's funny to think that a film so over-the-top, cheesy, and full of punchy one-liners could still hold up decades later. Fans still quote it, the soundtrack still gets people pumped, and the legacy of that PG-13 balance between violence and fun lives on in every gamer's heart. And while newer adaptations may come and go, the original 1995 film remains a snapshot of 90s nostalgia. A world where flying kicks, fireballs, and shouting Mortal Kombat could reign supreme. So next time you pop in the VHS, DVD, or streaming version, remember all the chaos, creativity, and sheer determination that went into making this one-of-a-kind movie. And remember, even in the world of Mortal Kombat, there's more than meets the eye, especially behind the scenes.